It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. A beautiful day in the neighborhood. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? Would you be my neighbor? It is, you know what? I'm freezing. I turned my heat up in my office. 73. Still cold. The hallway is cold. And it's kind of cold outside, but it's better than what we had. So I won't complain. I didn't expect to see any snow out. I'll really, really be glad when spring comes. Matter of fact, my flowers were starting to come up already on a couple warm days we had. Started to see it, and I was like, oh boy, then it's going to freeze up. It's going to kill them, and the cycle starts all over again. Well, welcome everybody to another show. We are live and in living color. And today I'm talking all things black. All things black today. First of all, for the first time, I mentioned the white supremacist, racist Peyton Gendron. Finally, I said I wouldn't say his name until the family members said his name at his sentencing the other day, and several of them said, say his name. And so I say his name now because they wanted his name to be remembered for the evil that he did here in Buffalo. And we always remember the 10 lives that were lost and the 3 that were wounded and the many that were wounded just being there. The mental anguish that they continue to go through. I'll tell you this, though. Counseling and therapy have become front and center. Last night we had Best Self here, and we have partnered with them now to be here on Thursday nights and to operate walk-ins when they need to here at the church. And they did healing sessions with adults and with youth. One of the classes had like over 30 people, and our youth, who they had a choice, they didn't have to go. They could go to their regular youth meeting at 6. All of them, every single one of them, wanted to go into the healing circle. That's powerful and something that African Americans have not done and are now doing. Whether it's getting a therapist, whether it was encouraging. And some of them didn't want to lead a class, and person's putting it all together, Diamond Barnwell, said, we may have to extend the time. And I said, nope, let people want to come. Let them want to come. And if you keep it at an hour, people know, hey, I run over there for hours, just like church. For me, you all know how I am as far as church is. When I want people to, you can come on in, thank you. I want them to want to get more. Sometime you can stay in church 5 hours and then people don't come the next week. So do an hour. We're going to continue that. Also, Best Self is going to be at our freedom funerals. Prayerfully we won't have any more homicides, but just in case, they're going to be there because we were offering counseling. It was very difficult to get counselors, but now they're going to be there. So big ups to them. But I bring that up because at the trial, Diamond was there from Best Self. She was not the trial, at the sentencing. I looked at as the camera spanned, so she was there to offer support right there, her and her team. So when we talk about counseling and we talk about getting our headspace together, another thing that came out of the Tops massacre was the amount of people who are willing to say, let's talk. And it's not sessions on Thursday night. Nobody's trying to get in your head. There isn't any counseling going on. It's more healing. So it's just being able to talk out your feelings and to know you're not alone. I now twice in a week have talked about my emotions, and especially as I watched the trial, and I don't know why I got so, well, I do know. I think it was the families, hearing from the families and the hurt of the families. And I know, let me say this, I know the court has to protect everybody. Mm-hmm. But I am not going to tell a story. I'm not going to lie. When that guy broke loose, I think many people were saying, just let him get a little further, just because he's well protected, and you're a murderer. You are a cold-blooded, evil murderer, but you protect it. But who protects us? Like the tape that was released today, the recording of another unarmed black man shot. If you haven't seen it, I'm not sure what area it was from.
The one that was just on in the office in Louisiana.
It's in Louisiana. Mm-hmm. So the police go to a house from a call from a domestic disturbance, and a gentleman answers the door, middle-aged. He has a bottle in his hand, but he was not utilizing the bottle to threaten police. He was drinking. And he says to the police, they said, "Can step outside?" He said, "No." And he goes to put up his dog. He said he was going to put up his dog. And there was, you could tell, an argument between him and the woman who was in the house. The police tell him, "Sit down." He says, "No, I'm going to put up my dog." He goes in the back bedroom or in the room, and the police, by the time they get there, he jumped over the porch. It looked like a second story porch. But again, let me say this, no weapon, running away from police, away. No known crime committed at that point. It was a domestic call. Now, let me say this as a former law enforcement officer with the U.S. Air Force. We were always taught that domestic calls are one of the most dangerous calls you can go on. And this is why. When you go on a domestic call, usually one partner or person calls. And when police show up, there are times that the people who call will turn against the police. Mm-hmm. So it is a very dangerous call. And so and even on an Air Force base, it was when you went to a domestic call, you never knew how things would change. So, which gives no excuse. I'm just giving background on some police stuff. So he jumps off of the porch, he runs, and all of this happens in less than 2 minutes. He runs, another police officer approaching him, you hear one shot, but when the camera the body cam gets back to him, he's got his hands up. Both of his hands are up. He does not have the bottle. Now remember, he jumped off of a porch. So he didn't have anything in his hand because you got to balance yourself to get over the banister. He jumps over the porch. His hands are up. Mm-hmm. They shoot him one time, and they did work feverishly to bring him back, but he died. So we have another, when you talk about who protects us, we got white supremacists. You got to realize where our heads are right now. You got white supremacists trying to kill us. And not trying. They are. And then you got this boy sitting in the courtroom. The families just tore me apart. But what really just kind of infuriated me, because everybody's represented in the United States. That's the way it is. He deserves representation like everybody else. His lawyer started out, I was like, okay, all right. And then I learned from some other lawyers that was like a setup to keep him from possibly the death penalty. And that's why he did the "I'm sorry" and "don't pattern yourself after me" and all that baloney that he has had a lot of time in his protected cell to practice. He's had a lot of time to practice that. and it was very rehearsed. It was with no emotion at all. So you can't tell me. I just didn't feel it. I didn't feel the problem. I didn't feel it, not even for a second, that it was sincere or that it was real. And so the DA says he's not going to charge the gentleman who charged at him. He shouldn't. I don't think that would go over too well.
Or for punching the wall.
Or for punching the wall. And he said he hopes that they have a line for repairs. If they don't have a line for repairs, I'll pay for the repairs out of my pocket. And I mean that. I'll pay for them, because at the end of the day, hey, the guy, the man, I understand, sir. I understand.
And I think, like you said, the mental health of it is, some of these families have been holding this for 9 months.
Yeah.
So now that I finally have this moment to express it publicly.
Yeah.
You always say this, you never know when you're at your breaking point.
Absolutely.
And now that I'm at that moment to confront the very situation that caused me the most drama, like you said, I'm not mad at him.
Yeah.
And it is not the first time, and it won't be the last time.
Absolutely. Oh yeah. It happens quite often in courts. I don't encourage it. Right. I'm going to say that, because you can be charged now.
You can.
You can
and
be
the DA
charged.
said that.
Definitely can be. Courtrooms, they have to keep decorum. But I didn't expect his voice to sound like it did. He sounded like a little kid. And I pray for his soul. I pray for his soul. So yeah, that and now he still has to go to court again in the federal charge, in which he could have to go to trial so that they could decide whether he gets the death penalty.
Yes,
that would be painful, but I think that I just pray. I just pray that the right people make the right decisions. I am not a proponent for him of the death penalty or anybody else, because to me it is the easy way out.
Agreed.
And you shouldn't get the easy way out. You should have to grow old in there. You should have to grow old, and you should probably not be in protective custody sometime. Just go to the chow hall. Go to the chow hall with everybody else. I found this article because I'm talking about all things black from the ACLU, and it's really interesting. And then I'm going to talk about, I'm going to see if you can guess what a Pew Research said that what black Americans say is needed to overcome racial inequality.
Ooh.
What black Americans say is needed. So today, at the 12:30 half hour, we're going to play commercials. I told you I'm going to give my sponsors some more love. When I come back from the commercial at 12:30, then I'll deal with the black Americans' need. I want you all to, on Facebook, I want you all to, or YouTube, start putting up what you think those 5 things. Here's the article. For Black History Month, a look at what black Americans say is needed to overcome racial inequality. What do you all think? Just give me 1 or 2, and we're going to see how accurate we are, or how on point we are. So this article says, and I won't read, Mother Doyle could just say this stuff, but the first slaves, and I'm just reading, so you don't need to say enslaved to me, I'm reading, arrived here in 1619. When you look at it, it just wasn't that long ago.
No. No,
it just was not that long ago.
And I think even before, I know we get ready to deep dive, but I think people also have to realize when people are like, oh, you should get over it, it's less. We just got voting rights in your lifetime. Like, it's not like we.
Between 1619 and 1865.
Yeah.
1865. That's how long this went on. 1865.
Yep.
Virginia passed more than 130 slave statutes to regulate the ownership of black people. A 1662 law made all children of enslaved mothers slaves, regardless of the father's race or status,
Yep.
so that rape by white slave masters couldn't create a free child. It goes on, and I'm gonna skip a lot of this. A 1667 law codified that slaves who converted to Christianity were still slaves. A 1669 law, because everybody would have been saved in Christian.
Everybody.
The wording of the law regarding Christianity is revealing. The slave masters would claim Christian piety in their acts of enslavement. Whereas, I quote, some doubts have risen whether children that are slaves by birth and by the charity and piety of their owners made partakers of the blessed sacrament of baptism should be by virtue of their baptism be made free. The conferring of baptism doth not alter the condition of the person as to his bondage or freedom. Virginia didn't have a monopoly on horrible slave laws. In 1740, South Carolina passed a comprehensive slave code with 57 provisions so that the slave may be kept in due subjection and obedience. Provisions included making it a crime for slaves to grow or possess their own food.
Wow.
I never knew that.
Wow.
Gather in groups, I knew that, or learn to read. This is why we have to teach. And one of the articles that I read still says we still are not teaching the enslavement of black people the right way.
No.
We still are not telling the whole story. And if they won't tell it in school, in the curriculum, we have to tell it.
Right.
The black church has to tell this story.
Or if a state won't allow you to tell the story.
Like Florida, who does not want it really taught the way it is. And I'm going back to the article, but this past Sunday, the dance team did folks. I encourage you to go to True Bethel's page, go to my page, look at last Sunday at 10 o'clock service, and they did a dance about slavery, and it was just so powerful because they had adults in it, they had young adults in it, and they had the children in it. And that's what I grew up with at St. Luke. I grew up learning my heritage, learning my culture. We were not ashamed to be black and to say that we were black and we were proud. And so I know I have a responsibility to continue doing it because they're not doing it in the schools.
And that's a big up to the AME and the AME Zion Church.
Oh,
they
absolutely.
were huge on that.
Absolutely. So it talks about in this article, I'm going to get right to where I wanted to get to, terrorism, even if we refuse to acknowledge it. The largest terrorist attack. Who's calling already? We ain't even gave out the number yet. Wow.
That must be a shared line up front.
You think so?
Yeah.
The largest terrorist attack in Oklahoma was not the federal building. Now, I know you know. Okay, here we go. I wish I was in real time on Facebook. I'm behind a little bit.
We're about almost
about a minute.
Yeah.
A lot of people think the largest terrorist attack was Oklahoma. Remember, I think it's Timothy McVeigh or whatever. Yep. Remember, he went through
Oklahoma City bombing.
Yep, that was not the largest terrorist attack in Oklahoma. Ooh, I wish Miss Doyle. Absolutely. Yeah. If you have never heard of Black Wall Street, I'm going to read a little bit about it because this is a show of everything black. Timothy McVeigh, nope. The largest attack happened to black people in Oklahoma.
Greenwood.
And wealth, however, did not mean, okay. In the early 20th century, it was referred to as Black Wall Street, was the home to black and Native Americans who had become wealthy from oil discoveries. Wealth, however, did not mean equality. White residents were disturbed by the growing black wealth and sought to impose official segregation measures. Now, folk, the reason I'm going to give some commentation in here because we got to stop hating one another, being mad at one another when we get wealth. This is what happened to us all the way back in Oklahoma. Yeah. We got wealth. And now, I don't know where we get this. You a sellout now if you got something, or if you taking care of your family or your business. This is the mentality that white supremacists have put in our head, and then we carry it out, and it's ridiculous. So white residents were disturbed by the growing black wealth and sought to impose official segregation measures. in Tulsa. 1914, Tulsa passed a law that forbade anyone from living, listen to this, on a block where more than 3/4 of the pre-existing residents were of another race. If you had 3/4 white folks, you couldn't live on the street.
Yep. Yeah.
In isolation, Greenwood thrived. Its main strip boasted attorneys' offices,
Yep.
black and Native American, black folks, auto shops, cafes, a movie theater, funeral homes, pool halls, beauty salons, grocery stores, furriers,
Yep.
and confectionaries. The resentment among whites against this community was a powder keg awaiting a spark. The spark came with the alleged sexual assault. And I'm just going to start paraphrasing of a black teenager gets into an elevator. Bumps into a white elevator operator, 17-year-old girl, and she screamed. Bystander hears it. Now, of course, there is no cell phone, but there were phones. People start calling, and this story got bigger and bigger and bigger, and it went from a bumping into to a sexual assault.
And I think people have to understand that the young black man was in Tulsa, not Greenwood.
Yes.
And he fled back to Greenwood, and all of this transpired. It wasn't even 24 hours.
When Rowland was captured, some black World War I veterans from Greenwood armed themselves in front of the courthouse to prevent a lynching. They were justified in their fear. A lynching occurred in Tulsa the year before.
Yep.
Greenwood's black news, they had a black newspaper. Yep. Listen. They had a black newspaper. They had black attorneys. They had black neighborhoods that were thriving. The Tulsa Star reported the August 1920 lynching of a white teenager caused a murder by a white mob. The paper reported that Tulsa police had done little to protect the lynching victim. Mm-hmm. In front of the court, who had been taken from jail cell.
Yeah.
They went in and got him and lynched him outside.
Yeah.
In front of the courthouse, a group of white men approached a black man from Greenwood. "Nigga, what are you going to do with that pistol?" one of the white men asked. "I'm going to use it if I need to," was the reply. The white man grabbed the gun, and the gunshot rang. It's unclear whether blah, 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 blah. Basically, dead estimated at 100. I'm reading from Tulsa paper back then, and they said it was underestimated by the paper back then. Mm-hmm. And here's the next word. City is quiet.
Yep.
That's the largest massacre in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And there were hundreds by the time this was over.
Yeah. City demolished, and the survivors of Greenwood were the ones that were able to escape because they burnt everything.
Yes.
They killed whoever they saw.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And they used airplanes.
Yeah.
They used airplanes to drop down these fireballs
Yes.
that set their houses on fire. Before it was over, 5,000, I'm reading from the Tulsa Daily World, 5,000 Negro refugees guarded at camp at county fairgrounds.
Yep.
Oh, and by the way, do you know that there were reparations paid after slavery?
Yes.
To the slave owners.
Yep. Yes, there was.
To the slave owners.
And I think now, like you said, we need more than an hour show for this. We should have did this all month because I think.
Well, it's all month I am talking black.
Yeah. So we gave Lincoln a lot of credit for the Emancipation Proclamation. Mm-hmm. He did that to preserve the Union, but it was all about economics. It had nothing to do with slavery. He wasn't this big advocate of freeing slaves. He just knew, I got to keep this Union together as president. And the fight was about the economics.
On April 16th, 1862, more than 8 months before he issued his Emancipation Proclamation, Abraham Lincoln signed a bill ending slavery in the District of Columbia. It provided for immediate emancipation of slaves and compensation to slave owners loyal to the Union of up to $300 for each freed slave. Over the next 9 months, the Board of Commissioners appointed to administer the act approved petitions about blah, 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 blah. It was reparations, just not to us. All things black today, all things black next week. And when I get ready to come back from the break in a minute, we're going to talk about, I'm going to see if the virtual audience and if my audience of one, it can tell me what Black Americans say is needed to overcome racial inequality. Are we going over?
Rashad is playing for the radio audience, and then you got 2 minutes.
He's doing the
Yep.
commercials now. So Rashad is doing the so I can just talk to you guys because we're talking about Hobson's right now, and Brian K. Lewis is playing, and then our radio audience will be coming back. But these 5 things. So I guess I'll give I'll give my little Hobson's because they do help us to not help us. They pay for us to be on the air. So I'll give them some love with my voice right now. 874 East Delavan, Hobson's Dry Cleaners. Pays our bills right here on Facebook, right here on YouTube, right on AM, and right on FM. Now, what I'm going to give you guys is a number to call in. Is that this number is right, the 541?
Yes.
All right, 541-0866. Everything is like True Bethel is waking back up from the pandemic. So we got new phone lines now because ours got all burnt out from the flooding. I got the sign guy outside. Bible study was back to being full yesterday. The place is humming along again and doing even better. And we just want to do greater things. So I encourage people, and especially if you belong to a church, get back involved with your church. Get back involved. Don't just watch your church on the internet. Your presence is so important. That energy that your presence brings is a part of our coming together. So this is a time that we got to wake back up and get back in the game and do the work that God has given us to do. Brian K. Lewis Funeral Home, 3 locations to serve you: 347 Peckham, 2528 Bailey, and 1275 Sycamore. In your hour of need, Brian K. Lewis Funeral Home. Are we back?
Yep.
All right. Thank you, Shadi Swag, for running our commercials, and we are back. So here it is. Let me see if anybody said anything over here. Let me see. Over here, and we go prepare to repair. Good afternoon. Okay. Stop what you're doing. Communist is in progress. That for some reason I got a feeling that is Ross.
I'm sure.
That looks like his signature. All right, Mark. The number here, we got our phone lines back up. We are waking this sleeping giant back up. 541-0866. Area code 716-541-0866. Give me a guess on one of the things you think Black Americans say is needed to overcome racial equality. And this is a Pew Research, so it's a valid.
I was going to say, how broad are we talking?
Yep.
Because I would say first and foremost would be education.
Guess what? Nope.
Really?
And that's what I felt. When I first looked at it, I'll be honest, I'm thinking it's got to be the education of our children. Nope. Not at all. Nope. Got another one, and I'll give you number one.
If it's not education, what? Oof.
Yeah. See, yeah. I don't understand how we don't start at education.
Yeah, because everything starts with education. I can't talk about finances without being financially literate. I can't talk about getting involved in government unless I know civics. So I don't understand how you don't start with education.
Most black adults see voting as an extremely or very effective strategy. Now, and I guess it's really how the question
Yeah.
is worded, because it says what black Americans say is needed to overcome racial inequality. I again would say
Yeah.
education. They say that most black adults, 63% of those surveyed, it looks like, voting as an extremely or very effective strategy for helping black people move toward equality. But fewer than half say the same about protesting. And this is what I think. Now, the Pew Research, they do Pew Research in multiple ways, but it is very scientific. And I wonder if, I wish I could see the age of the people who
Yeah.
and who answered this particular survey, because it was voting, not protesting, over everything. That was the number one. Number one was voting as a way of.
I would say voting does help with getting government to pay attention to a community. But again, if you don't understand the power of your vote by education, then you sit back and say, my vote doesn't matter.
So here's what's interesting. I really dug in deep for this conversation.
Okay.
Another survey, not by Pew Research, and it said that the majority of people that they surveyed felt like in recent history, in the last few years, the movement that did the most for black people was not Urban League, was not NAACP. It was Black Lives Matter, right?
Okay.
But then in that same survey, the people who they're most likely to go to help to that they feel would spread the word about black inequality was not elected officials. The elected official was the last.
Wow.
I think the church was the third to last. And it was basically about activism, right? So you see this like, okay, they're saying voting, and like you said, maybe the thought of being able to use your political power, but many people didn't believe in elected officials. Chuki says she thought it was going to be credit and land. Katrina says we need our money. Yep, that's what I got up there.
And I would agree. Like, we do need our money. We do need the equity in finances and economics. But again, as proven, when the government has done bailouts and given money, we, without that education of knowing what to do with it, we've spent it.
Consumers.
We've consumers and never been investors. So we just keep the chain going of not having.
Absolutely. We're keeping a lot of chains going.
Yeah.
We're keeping, when you read about Black Wall Street, that's the chain that should have kept going.
Absolutely.
But it's almost like our soul was burned
Yes.
when Black Wall Street was burned. And to this day, we have not, I'm not going to say totally, because I think that there are some areas. Right now, black folks are moving to Texas. I looked at one survey, and right in the biggest place in Texas for black people is not nope. It was Dallas.
Really?
Where the amount of black people live.
Okay.
Right now, the majority of black people in Texas are in Dallas. I had all those. I think I got that somewhere. I got that. I do have that. I do that. I'll share that in a second. The second thing that Black Americans say is needed to overcome racial inequality. It says, number 2, Black Americans say Black Lives Matter. Oh, yeah. See, this has done the most to help black people in recent years. Yep, that's what it says. Oh, this is in the same article. So it says, nearly 4 in 10 black adults say Black Lives Matter has done the most. That was 39%. 17% say the NAACP. 14% say someone else. 13% say black churches or other religious organizations. 6% say the Congressional Black Caucus. 3% say the National Urban League. Now, National Urban League for me here locally does a lot. So, but this is not the local national. This is the National Urban League, how they see it all together. So, 39%, but not 50, not more than half, but less than half. But the majority felt that Black Lives Matter. Now, I think Black Lives Matter has gotten a black eye in the last few years
Absolutely.
and things we found out what happened with the money. But I can't take away the fact that they brought a lot of attention to the plight of black people.
Completely agree. And I think, because I think before that, you never saw as much. The only other time you saw Black unity I can remember in my lifetime was the Million Man March. Mm-hmm. That was the only time you saw throngs of black people together. But even as great as that was, I couldn't tell you what the message or the call to action was after that.
Mm-hmm. Or whether it was followed through.
Right. So
Or the results.
Yeah. So I think I would agree. And I think that's where Black Lives Matter started to, like you said, get the black eye, because it was always like, we're fighting. And then after a while, you're like, okay, what am I fighting for? And it's like, give me call to actions. Like, if we accomplish this piece of legislation, what's next? And I think the more, if we're just going to keep out here rallying and fighting and no one is telling me what we're fighting for,
Absolutely.
then I think again, we end up in another cycle.
Well, and I think what Black Lives Matter did, it was basically around a situation,
Yes,
a
absolutely.
cause.
Yes.
A cause. You knew that this was about unarmed black folks being killed, and that kind of call to action and call to reform. Number 3, some black adults see black-owned businesses and black-led communities as effective remedies for inequality.
I agree.
I do too. And I see black-owned businesses who are accepted universally.
Yes.
Sometimes we think black-owned businesses should only be shot by black people.
Yep.
And there are other examples, and this is why I encourage people to travel with their children and to travel themselves and to go to other places. Because when you go to some of the more popular places for black folks,
Yes.
Atlanta, Texas now, it even said Miami, which was odd, New York City, the greatest concentration of black folks in one area
Philly.
is New York City. Nope.
Yeah. No, I was saying that as another place.
Yeah. And I think I got that in this article too. New York City, but if you go, and New York City, for what my point, maybe not. I'm talking about places where black folks are doing their thing.
Absolutely.
I'm talking about where there are black construction companies, major. Let me say this, major. We do not in this area have a major black construction company. I said this other week, the one that's up and coming right now is Lazarus.
Yep.
Lazarus is up and coming.
Everyone else had to leave.
They're gone.
Yeah.
Sandra's not doing it anymore. And the problem that we got to get over, because when there is one, then it's going to be like, they sell out, they oh my goodness, they built it, and my door don't close all the way, and all that kind of stuff. Black-owned business is important. But it's important for black-owned business to be able to break into other markets.
And it's funny you just said. I was just sitting here thinking, because we do it even in this city. We will say we need more black-owned business, but what will end up happening is our businesses have to move over to Hurdle and Elmwood to survive, and it's because either we don't support, or, as you always say, business. You don't open a business for philanthropic reasons.
That's right.
So you go where the consumers are, or where, again, learning economics, the disposable income. We generally don't have a lot of disposable income, so you have to go to the markets where people have disposable income.
Absolutely. We got a call there? All right, we're going to see if we got a call. We don't know what we're doing with our new phone lines yet. They are brand new. This money that's coming in, and we talk about revitalizing Jefferson or vitalizing Jefferson. If I had my way, this is me. Now, I don't control these monies because they're not coming from the city. I think the money should be reserved first for businesses who are already operating in the corridor. They should have the number one pick. Number two, for people who have lived in the Jefferson Avenue and they've been in the struggle.
Absolutely.
because some money comes in and then other folk are able to run and get it
Yep.
before we finish the application.
Yep.
That's a caller?
Yes, we have Kamal.
Kamal is on the line. Kamal, great to have you after not being on having phone lines for a couple months.
Yes, thanks. Always good watching you do the work that you do for the community.
Thank you, brother.
In terms of watching the sentencing, I wanted to see the wolf, not the wolf in sheep's clothing. I thought they needed to have a split screen for how he was dressed for battle to remind people of how he looked on that day, not how he looked dressed up and cleaned up for court. So that's what I wanted to see, so people can remember exactly what we're facing. They could have a split screen so that he was all cleaned up, showing what's underneath the wolf's outfit, but have an image of him fully dressed in battle fatigue to show what kind of danger is out there.
Yeah, that's a good point, Kamal. Thank you so much for calling. I figured our first caller would be Kamal. I figured it's either going to be Kamal or it would be Mother Doyle. So thank you. Yeah, that is something, because he looked like a little kid. His glasses were cleaner than mine. He had on that little outfit. He looked so innocent when you looked, and then the kind of it wasn't no expression.
No, absolutely not.
I wanted to sing that song, "It's Written All Over Your Face." You don't have to say a word. Number 4. Oh, we were at businesses. Number 4, the vast majority of black adults say the prison system needs significant changes
I agree. Completely agree.
for black people to be treated fairly. I used to teach at Attica. I don't know if they still do a lot of the education and programs that they used to do. I know they did cut out some things, but I think if you've done you've paid your debt to society, don't let me sit there and rotten and come back out and I have nothing.
Nothing.
Because it's called recidivism.
Right.
I gotta eat. I gotta survive. You limit where I can live. I got that, especially maybe for a sex offender. But you limit who I can live with. I got that because you don't want them to go back into criminal activity. But then if I don't learn a skill,
if I don't have the opportunity, I'm going to go back.
Many times.
You can move me to the other town, and I'm still going to find the situation.
The vast majority of black adults say the prison system needs major changes or needs to be completely rebuilt. And here's the problem, folks. Here's the problem. We talk about voting. We talk about the power of the vote. But if you don't vote in people who will make these changes, and if we don't do that in a big way, and then support them, let me back up and support them to make the changes. I'll say this: when you look at like Carriel's law, that wasn't Darius. That was community working together. Yes. That was lawyers working together. That was Carriel working together. That was all of these people who worked together to get Carriel's law passed. Fruit Belt Parking. It wasn't Darius. That was Crystal People Stokes working together with Byron Brown and the community, and that's how we get those bigger things done. Got a caller?
Yes, we have Queen Doyle.
Queen Doyle, we knew you would call.
Yes. Good afternoon, Bishop.
Good afternoon.
So nice to be able to talk to you again on the phone.
You too. I know you were listening when I was giving that history.
Yes. I just want everyone to know that my column, Eye on History, is being published in the Buffalo News every Sunday.
Yes.
And I'm doing a series on black doctors and healers. I did one on Dr. Daniel Williams, the heart surgeon, Dr. Charles Drew, who created the blood things for the Red Cross. Mm-hmm. And if people get this Sunday's paper, I just discovered someone I didn't know, and I've been doing this research for years. He was called Lucas the Negro. He was the first black physician in 1659.
Wow.
In this country.
Wow.
So I hope people will read it and share it with their family. And the last one I'm doing is the black physician who helped to create the I can't get the name out, defibrillator for heart patients.
Ah, yes.
Actually, yes, he actually developed it. It's going to be the last Sunday, so make sure people read it. And I will say the last thing I would say, Bishop, I'm celebrating 44 years this month of writing Eye on History. So I just want people to, I'm getting older now, Bishop.
Oh, you're not older. You're all right. You're getting better.
I have a birthday March 14th. I'll be 70 years old.
Oh, you're a Dow
And
baby.
I'm still writing history in Western New York. Thank you, Bishop.
Thank you. That's Queen Doyle. Look, all my people are on Ross is on Facebook. That was Ross. As our family moves to other states, beg them to register to vote and vote the best interests of our people. Very shocked to see our young people are moving to states that need good black representation.
Wow.
Number 5. I feel like David Letterman back in the day. Number 5 of what black Americans say is needed to overcome racial inequity. Inequality, sorry. 5, now this one threw me. Clear majorities of black adults say people of other races or ethnicities could make good political allies for black people. I'll read it. About 4 in 10 black adults, 42%, say white people would make good political allies only if they experience the same hardships as black people. So that basically white electeds, who have been through the struggle, make good allies.
Okay.
Another 35% say white people would make good political allies even if they don't experience these hardships. Around 1 in 5 black adults say white people would not make good political allies. Well, I'm going to tell you this. As an elected leader, you need allies.
Absolutely.
You need, and especially like you think about the council, I'm one of 9.
Right. So
you have to build those bridges in order to get something done.
Absolutely.
And where people say, "Oh, you just sold out." No. That's why we got our votes done. That's why we got. I think I only had 1 vote voted down in my entire. And once I learned that lesson, and it was when I first got to the council, because it took them so long to fill the Ellicott district seat, there was a budget that actually happened without any representation from Ellicott.
Wow.
And so I wanted to write a law that would force the Common Council to, if there was a vacancy, fill it within a certain amount of time.
Okay.
So then the question was, so if the Common Council doesn't move on it, how would you move forward? At that time, freshman, so I said, let the mayor pick it. That didn't. That went down like a hot air balloon without no hot air. And as a matter of fact, I late filed it thinking it was going to be okay, and Franzak voted down the late file. And so it didn't come back before us. But in that 2 weeks, I figured out my mistake. And I was like, you did not build alliance. You didn't build allegiance. You didn't go out and get allies and convince them. And now, to this day, I think almost 100% of what I put forward in front of the council has gone through.
And I was going to say
battled.
most of it unanimous.
Most of it has been unanimous. We battled back and forth. We negotiated. We talked. But that's how you have to get stuff done in a political system. So to me, whether you're black or whether you're white or whatever you are, I need you to get you on the same thing on the issue. On the issue.
Absolutely.
So that was the 5. Now,
and like you said,
go ahead.
you definitely need allies because Dr. Martin Luther King realized that he needed allies. And it's documented that even when Malcolm X when he got back from his pilgrimage and realized that all Muslims weren't black,
yes,
he started reaching out. And if you look at even just our history, in 240 some odd years, we've had 1 black president. So if I need something done, I gotta go to.
I
gotta
gotta
through
build
white
those.
channels.
I gotta build it. Matter of fact, and I said what we would talk about this week, and I stayed to it and left it on my desk. Next week, when we talk about, I want to talk about black wealth, the difference between wealth and being rich and being poor, and some of the habits that I have learned from wealthy people, and I haven't always followed them. But I've been looking at Miles Monroe, some of the stuff he's talking about money, and about how and that's next week, but how we have to be careful that as soon as we get money, we don't buy something to show off.
Absolutely.
Because that's part of the problem. We buy stuff to show off, and then when the money ain't there, we can't show up. So
that's good.
yeah. I'm ready for this. I don't know what's going on with me lately, but I'm on fire for I don't know. But we're going to talk about that next week. So if I have any financial folks out there and you want to call in next week, maybe I'll have a guest on. But I want to talk about our money. And it's okay, especially after talking about Black Wall Street. Yeah. Let's talk about money. Many people are going to get tax money coming up, have no idea. We are consumers and pleasure seekers and all that. And you can be pleasure seekers, but it's good to have pleasure and have some dollars. It's good to have pleasure. So we're going to talk about that. So here's the last thing I want to talk about. And this is, again, a Pew Research. And it's just giving some key facts about the nation's 47.2 million black people. And this was just published February 10th. Number one, the black population in the U.S. has grown by 30% since 2000. From 36.2 million to 47.2. You want to know one of the greatest factors? It ain't because y'all making babies. New Americans. Black people moving in from different countries. The number of black, reflecting a broader national shift, is the number of Americans identifying as multiracial as well as changes to how U.S. Census Bureau asks about race. And in another article, it talked about the new Americans who are moving who identify as non-white.
Got it. Makes sense.
Got it? Yeah. Among U.S. black population, both multiracial and Hispanic numbers have grown sharply since 2000. Number two, the arrival of new immigrants, just said it, from Africa, the Caribbean, and elsewhere has been an important contributor to black population growth. Number three, more than half of the nation's black population live in southern states. 56% of us live in southern states. And did I have it here? This is where I got all those states that I was telling you about. The share of black Americans who live in the South varies by racial and ethnic background. Among those who are black alone and not Hispanic, roughly 59% live in the South. By comparison, only 42% are multiracial and non-Hispanic. Number four, with 4 million black residents, Texas is the state with the largest black population. Wow. Following Texas, well, who do you think?
Georgia.
No, I would have thought Georgia too. We on the same line. Florida. I can't believe, where?
Now, I guess unless we're going back to talking about now that the non-Americans moving in, because Florida does get a lot out of the Caribbean.
3.8 million.
So I can see that.
You got 4 million in Texas, 3.8 million and then Georgia.
Wow.
So Georgia, and I mean, it's so close because you got 4 million. Georgia has 3.6 million. So it's just who woke up and
I was going to say we about 1 year away from
who didn't do the survey that came to the the census.
7 million blacks in Georgia.
And one of the points I made earlier, New York has more black residents than any other metropolitan area. And then you get, so it's metropolitan, it's New York, basically New Jersey, they put them all together, Newark, 3.9 million. Then you have Atlanta. This is so confusing. Oh, because we did states. Now, metropolitan area, Atlanta is number 2.
Okay.
And then you have D.C.
Okay.
Washington, Arlington, Alexandria. Mm-hmm. Then you have Chicago.
Okay.
Then you have Philly, and it includes Camden and Wilmington.
Okay. Camden's right over the bridge. And,
there it is. And then you have Dallas-Fort Worth, and with Arlington. Then you have Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm. That's why, because they put all of them together. Okay. And then you have Houston, the Woodlands, Sugarland area. Then you have Detroit.
I think Detroit had an exodus because I think they would have been higher.
Yeah.
Like you said.
Oh, they did have
70,
one when the car industry went down. And then you have Los Angeles and Long Beach.
Okay.
L.A. So, and the black population, listen, churches, listen, of the U.S. is relatively young.
Yeah.
In 2021, the median age of black Americans was 33 years old.
I was going to say about 35.
33. And then, what is it? By comparison, the nation's overall median age was 38 in 2021.
Wow.
Yeah. Among black Americans, median age varies considerably by race and ethnicity. Single race, I'm not going to read all that. That gets I get all confused. Single race, Hispanic, black folks is down south.
You know, they used to say one drop makes you.
But here's the last thing, and I'll turn it over to the station. Educational attainment among black Americans is on the rise. That's good to hear.
That is good to hear.
Next week, we're talking about our money. If your money is funny, tune in next week. Until then, I'm throwing it back over to the station. We say power to the people.